Thank you. All right. It was a pleasure to be here. I've done F-Bomb once before, but it was on Zoom, so this is a much more tangible experience, which I really appreciate being able to see the audience here. So I'm going to read a short story from my collection and then a poem afterwards. The first story here is called An Erotic Education. The cavernous campus library is lit with dozens of hooded lamps, reposing on their respective desks. The library is empty except for a naughty young couple who hid away until past closing so that they may have the illustrious racks all to themselves. Amelia, a redhead with long straight hair and pale freckled skin, is lounging in a cushioned chair with a stack of vintage erotica at her feet. Her girlfriend, Alma, a curvy Latinx woman with Betty Page bangs and a penchant for dark lipstick, sits facing her with one leg swinging over the arm of an identical chair. It started with an assignment for their queer literature class. Write an essay on the poetry of Michael Field. Michael Field, the professor had explained, was not a man, but the pseudonym for a late 19th century lesbian couple, one woman the niece of the other. These two women, Catherine Bradley and Edith Cooper, declared themselves closer married than Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the ultimate literary power couple of their time. Edith Bradley had said that those two poets, man and wife, wrote alone, whereas she and her aunt created their works as one. As Alma and Amelia studiously exhumed the history of this pioneering couple, they discovered the lush and thriving garden of vintage queer erotica. Most famously, there was Sappho, the woman-adoring poet and muse from the island of Lesbos in Greece, from which the word lesbian comes from. Lesser known was an anonymously penned book of kink and BDSM called Astrid Kane, published in 1891, in which a young girl is initiated into womanhood by her older dominatrix. Next, Alma and Amelia found the book Mysteries of Verbena House, published in 1882 under a pseudonym, an erotic, flagellatory fiction that follows a British headmistress as she maintains discipline and order among her 50 curious and unruly students, whipping any young lady who steals into another young lady's bed. The mischievous, willful deviance of Victorian-era erotica captivated Alma and Amelia, arousing their senses more than the modern-day lesbian porn they like to watch together in their dorm room on the weekends. In an age of anything goes, nothing seemed quite as deliciously obscene as the printed pornography from an age of sexual regulation and restriction. As though designing their own pornographic plot, the two young women decided to sneak into this symbolicome of higher learning to further educate themselves in the wicked ways of secret smut that was gathering dust on the shelves where few students sought their learning. Listen to this, Amelia says to Alma, holding open a text by Annie Eastman. I want to love you wildly. I don't want words, but inarticulate cries, meaningless, from the bottom of my most primitive being that flow from my belly like honey, a piercing joy that leaves me empty, conquered, silenced. She also wrote, we efface an hour by passionate love without twists, without aftertaste. When it is finished, it isn't finished. We lie still in each other's arms, lulled by our love, by tenderness, sensuality in which the whole being can participate. God, her passion practically drips off the page, says Alma, playing her right index finger over her lower lip. I bet she was a generous lover. Did you know she was bisexual? Asked Amelia. She had countless lovers, both men and women, most famously Henry Miller and Gore Vidal. And she had an illegal abortion in the 1930s. She knew what she wanted and she went after it despite the stigma. Erotic writers like her are just as important and valid as the literary canon. Amelia sets down the Benin and flips through a Victorian novel while twirling a lock of her strawberry hair. Their work helps awaken people's senses and inspires them to know themselves fully. It shows us that we're not perverted for entertaining certain fantasies. Or it shows us that everyone's perverted and that there's nothing wrong with that. Alma winks at Amelia under the lamplight's green glow. Go on then, read something from the other book. Amelia sits up straight, her legs spread slightly apart so that Alma can see a swatch of her lacy pink panties peeking out from beneath her skirt. She begins reading in an innocent voice from a collection of fictional letters called School Life in Paris. Suddenly, she flung herself along the foot of the bed, and forcing my legs still farther apart, she thrust her head down between them, and in another instant I felt her long and ardent tongue forcing its way between the throbbing lips of my excited cunny, tickling the top of the entrance to it with steady friction, and from time to time exploring its inmost recesses so as to stimulate every organ of it to the highest enjoyment of sensual pleasure. Alma wiggles in her seat, massaging her ample breasts. Shall I go on? Teases Amelia. Don't you dare stop now, Alma commands, looking flushed. Amelia spreads her legs a little wider and unbuttons her silky blouse so that her matching pink lace bra can be seen pushing her modest breasts up toward her collarbones. Alma bites her lip. As soon as she could feel that all the nerves in my cunt were fully aroused and excited, she made a sign to the other girls. Wait, there are other girls? Interrupts Alma, bouncing in her chair as though to an inaudible rhythm. Who are they? Where are they? They're students at an all-girls boarding school in Paris who are initiating the newest girl into their lesbian society. Dear sweet Gaia, swoons Alma. Please continue. She made a sign to the other girls, who immediately quickened the action of their tongues upon my titties and of their fingers upon my spine, while she somehow managed to slip inside my pussy one of her fingers, with which she began to irritate it by rubbing the upper part of the inside with as much speed and energy as she could, thereby leaving her tongue free to act continuously on a small spot on the top of the entrance to my cunny, where it caused me a most delicious sensation. Speaking as me, I love these old-timey words. At this point, Alma is practically panting. As Amelia continues to read in her sweet yet sultry voice, Alma slouches forward in her chair and raises her right foot, sliding it up along the inside of Amelia's legs and pressing it directly against the lacy fabric between her creamy thighs. Amelia gasps, thrusting forward into her girlfriend's exquisitely arched foot, and continues. With all these agencies at work, the thrill of pleasure, which was throbbing through every part of my body, became more and more intense until at last I could scarcely bear it. Amelia pauses mid-sentence when Alma presses her big toe against her swollen center, the contact dampening the delicate lace of her panties. Don't stop reading or I'll take my foot away, says Alma, her eyes locked on Amelia's. Obediently, Amelia reads on. Something that the other girls called the liquor of love escaped from my cunny, and I seemed to die away in a swoon of voluptuous enjoyment. At the phrase voluptuous enjoyment, Alma kneels on the floor and begins to enact the very same delights as the schoolgirls upon the story's narrator. Don't stop reading, Alma hisses, and then envelops Amelia's plump lips with the flat of her greedy tongue. When I came to myself, the girls were all gathered round me on the bed, some of them kissing me and all congratulating me on the way in which I had gone through my initiation, for they declared that while it was going on, the lasciviousness of my movements and the voluptuous contortions of my body had clearly shown what an intensity of pleasure I was experiencing, thereby proving that I was specially endowed by nature for appreciating the vicious enjoyment of sensuality. Amelia can go on no longer. Caught up in an incoherent indulgence, she pushes her pelvis into Alma's face, squirming against the finger, charming her insides like some seductive serpent. Alma grips her hips, pinning her to the chair, and flicks the tip of her tongue against the soft button of her girlfriend's fragrant sex. Amelia arcs her back and cries out, tugging at Alma's raven hair as she vibrates with the electric climax of sensual release. Yes, hisses Alma. Let it out. You deserve every last drop of ecstasy for talking to me in that teasing little voice of yours. And now it's my turn to tease you. Let's see. How about an excerpt from the Nunnery Tales? Those are all real text from the 1800s, and you can find some of them in PDF form on the internet if you're interested.
You should as well. I feel
I
like
had a lot of fun researching that one.
pretty cool.
Triggered something for me.
Okay. I have one poem in the collection which I'm going to read. This is called Possibly Maybe, after the Bjork song. One day, I will lose him. The fear of loss pricks my skin, flares in my nostrils at its indicative cologne. This fear tastes like raw desire, the components of a moan. It arouses me in that way of funerals, urging me to feel alive. When I think of losing him, my body pulls to his, claims his space. I ask with touch, not tongue, to fill him, but the space I claim inside him serve as plea to stay until we one day leave this plane together, if possible the same hour, second. He surfaces from the wet laundry of my fears to show me the sky patched with velvet and linen, like some cosmic clothesline of boundless domesticity. He is a cloud taking on new shapes. With each shift, I think, this is my favorite version of you. If he is the sky, I am the aircraft eager to explore. The sandy, smoky citrus taste of his allure unfurls my fiddlehead tongue, lapping at the dawn's fortifying dew. His taste intoxicates. It clings to my mouth, my chin. I breathe him in for hours after we part. In the kitchen, his compact kitchen, we open jars, open cans, dipping into confections bought at the corner store. We spoon our sweets with delicate sweeps, blinking back our pleasure. I'm more indulgent when I'm with him, irrelevant whether good or bad. I ask him in his kitchen, when were you last ravenous? This week, he says, right now. He craves an audience for his efforts. It makes me hard to hear him stress about attention in that way that vulnerability invigorates. I'm ravenous for his shifting moods, the way he shares his every portion. Do I share my whole self with anyone? I fill him with my anxiety and lust and call it love. Easier to say I could fuck you every day than I could build a life with you. He constructs a drawbridge, lowering a rope when I sink into my moat of insecurities. Safe is a feeling I'm still afraid of. Easier to believe you deserve to sink, to slip through the cracks of self-defeat than to grip hold of security. He is the comfort food of home, a wild mushroom in a cave, the spice of foreign land. He leaves a lipstick ring I won't wash off. I'd tattoo his every imprint on my skin. This romanticism startles me. It's too often done me wrong, leading me to mislead all my lovers, to pull, to push. Of all people, I refuse to mislead him. Oh lover, I'll cover you, he croons as he stirs my emotions over the stove. Show tunes season all his meals, a tap of salt, kick of time. I'm afraid of turning bitter, afraid the next version of him will lose his taste for me. I pull away so he won't leave me first, despite that I would taste him for eternity. Thank you.